Hi, I'm Kent Harlan. I'm at Lepco in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Lepco asked me to come out and talk to you a little bit about Exmark's new sprayer spreader. I'm not a Lepco employee, I'm not an Exmark employee. I'm a landscaper from southeast Nebraska. I've had the last 2 years to run the new Exmark Sprayer Spreader that they've come to market with. A little bit about me. I started the lawn business in 1996. My wife was pregnant, she was home with our first child, and we decided we needed a second income. I told her, well, I can probably go find a few yards to mow, and a monster was born. Well, my daughter was born, but our lawn business was started. We started with one 21-inch Husky mower that we bought at a Tractor Supply Company and a 1987 Mazda pickup. Over the course of picking up a few more yards to mow, the business grew and grew to the point where in a matter of 2 short years, it outgrew what I was making as a county deputy, and I quit the sheriff's office and went full-time in the lawn business. Where our business stands today, we mow 70 to 80 properties per week. Some of those take 3 minutes, some of them take 3 hours. My wife and my daughter work the business solely by ourselves. In addition, we cover 5 to 7 million square feet chemically 7 times throughout the year. 5 of those are dry fertilizer and 2 of those are weed control. We bought our first permagreen ride-on spreader in 1997 from Lesco. At that time, we would put 25 to 30 hours per year on it. I realize that sounds like a lot of equipment for a little bit of time, but in working full-time, in addition to that, we needed to gain as much time as we could. Over the course of the years, we've owned 4 different permagreen units. We put just over 600 hours on our permagreen Century. We put 200 hours on a permagreen Ultra. We put just over 700 hours on a permagreen Magnum and 90 hours on a permagreen Triumph. After I developed shoulder problems from the articulating machine, we decided to go away from that style of machine and bought a Turfco T3000. It currently has 190 hours on it and is 3 years old. We service both residential and commercial properties. We find that the residential is a good steady growth. It's not nearly as competitive as the commercial, and the profit margins can oftentimes be higher. We do absolutely no competitive bids. 5 years ago, we got out of the competitive bid market. We set our prices, we guarantee quality, we service the accounts personally. That worked well for us. Our business exploded and continued to grow. In the summer of 2012, I was approached by an engineer at Exmark while I was there on some other business and asked me about ride-on spreaders. They asked a lot of questions like, what do you like about ride-on spreaders? What do you do with ride-on spreaders? Maybe more importantly, asked me what I didn't like about ride-on spreaders and what we weren't able to do with them. At that time, I told him the biggest thing we struggled with ride-on spreader sprayers was chemical capacity and the ability to suspend wettable powders and dry flowable products, keep them in suspension and spray them cleanly. That was a revenue source that we didn't want to have to backpack down or tank mix and drag a hose to have to apply. In the fall of 2012, Exmark brought me what's known as the Alpha unit. It was their first attempt at a ride-on spreader. It looked a great deal like this with a few changes. When I walked up to the Alpha unit, it was a very odd-looking machine compared to my Turfco, and my question to the engineer throughout the summer had been, how do you steer it? How do you make it go back and forth? And his comment was, I can't tell you. Well, when I walked up to the Alpha unit that looked a lot like this, I reached out and I poked this particular item and said, what's this? He said, well, that's how you make it go backwards and forward and side to side. And I shrugged my shoulders and kind of scoffed and said, huh, that'll never work. Instead of saying, why don't you get yourself out of here, he said, tell me why it won't work. My initial response to him was, it's too feeble. It didn't look like it was really attached to anything, and I knew it would never work. To this day, I have not apologized to that engineer because I didn't even have to be married to be that wrong. What's known as the lean to steer is all of your forward and rearward hydrostatic motion control and side to side. It's unlike anything I'd ever run, and it's unlike anything in the marketplace. Over the course of the fall of 2012, we put on our winterizer fertilizer in Nebraska with it, and it didn't take us long to figure out that the lean to steer was a real gift. It allowed for one-handed motion control, which we'd never had. It either took 2 hands to steer the machine and a foot to back it up, or 2 hands to steer it and back it up on any of the competitive products. It didn't take long to figure out that it was way outside the box. That fall we put down 46 ton of dry fertilizer over the course of 57 hours. Now some of those 57 hours involved some engineering time, but we knew that they had really achieved something different. In 2013, they brought the Alpha unit back to me, and they said, would you like to run it for a year? Well, I'd already decided I didn't really want to run my Turf Co. because of the steering and motion capabilities that were on the Alpha unit, so we took them up on it. Over the course of 2013, we put 275 additional hours on that. We did some testing with the spray system that evolved into what it is now. Other than that, the machine is, by and large, very similar to what it was at that time. In November of 2012, we did a test report for Exmark. They wanted all the feedback we could give them. We made notes from day one of things we liked, things we didn't like, things we knew would work, things we knew wouldn't work, not knowing what that test report entailed for Exmark. We made 5 pages of single-spaced bullet items that were things we did and didn't like and knew wouldn't work, and questions that we didn't understand about the machine. When that test report went to Exmark, we later found out that there's a long flow chart that goes with each one of those bullet items. Those flow charts include what's the problem, is it operator-induced problem, is there something we can do to fix it, how do we fix it, what does it cost, who fixes it, at what point do we fix it. We cost this engineer a month's worth of time in a mere 5 pages. I'm lucky he'll speak to me to this day. Over the course of 2013, running the Alpha unit, we beat it like a work mule. They didn't want us to be nice to it. They wanted us to use it like we normally would. They said, give it no special treatment. We want to see what its weak points are. We continued to evaluate the lean to steer, and we knew that it was way outside the box. In addition, some of the controls were laid out different, and we were a little critical with Exmark of the placement of some of those controls. And not just from our feelings, but things that they could see, they changed a lot of that into what we have today. I'll bring you forward to March of 2014. They brought me a unit we call Beta. Beta looks, in essence, just like this machine. The machine had some really neat changes. It had the styling in the upper console. It had a new frame on it that was much sturdier. It had the new painted tower, and our first impression was, it's cool, it looks good. It does have to look good to represent your company well. One change they made is they went from a linkage on the hopper opening system to a cable. I was pretty vocal with the engineers when I knew that anything that was a cable on a fertilizer spreading machine was prone to corrosion and at some point was going to fail. They wanted me to try it. I encouraged them to go back to a linkage. They said, well, you're going to have to try it. What they brought me was a cable about as big around as my little finger that has super high quality ends on it, and after 95,350 pounds applied in 2014, still works as easy now as it did then. Somebody didn't go with the best low bid cable. Other changes that they made, other than the location of the controls, they gave it the 175-pound hopper. That's going to depend on the density and the size of the prill of the material you put in it. We have found that you can crowd it to 200 pounds. It's rated at 175 pounds. That's a good medium. That's 3 bags plus of 50-pound material that are held comfortably in the hopper. They gave us the new 20-gallon spray tank as it's rated. What we have found, the tank will hold 22 gallons. We poured 1 gallon at a time in, we got 22 in. Exmark rates it at 20 gallons. We went into our first application of pre-emergence in April of 2012. That application consisted of 10 ton of dry material and we spot sprayed our broadleaf weeds that were up at that time. We really didn't have any specific problems. There was a little bit of a learning curve getting adjusted to some of the new controls, but it was really laid out well. In mid-May, we started our second coat of pre-emergence, and we blanket sprayed everything with a broadleaf weed control product. The spray system ran all the time. We knew that they had changed it a great deal. One thing that we saw different was the shape of the tank, and they put induction nozzles inside the tank to help mix and stir. Also, they put an agitation circuit that increases the flow in the tank at the operator's discretion. We went on to our third application of fertilizer with grub control that we start always about the 4th of July. This is where we as landscapers have struggled with certain products. We can find machines that will spread dry fertilizer and machines that will spray, but they won't handle any of the quincloracs, the prosedges, the things that get crabgrass, foxtail, nutsedge, problematic weeds that come throughout the summer. So we decided to try some. I was close to the plant. I had access to engineers and parts. They wanted to see what it would do. With 1 quart jets in the front and 30 pounds PSI, we knew we were at 1 quart of water per 1,000 square feet. That's a very low volume of spray. The units ship, I believe, with the 3rd quart jets. They're the white T-jets. We were using browns. 4 divisible math is easier than 3 divisible math because there's 4 quarts in a gallon. It's pretty simple. That's what makes this tank hold 2 acres of liquid material for us. So we put 22 gallons of water in it, added our surfactant. We added 2 acres worth of quinclorac in a dry form, which is designed for crabgrass and foxtail, and 2 acres of nutsedge control. We let the tank roll at its standard agitation. We went on to put our grub control on. When we got to either crabgrass escapes or nutsedge, we opened the spray valve and sprayed. There was no extra activity on our part other than the mixing of the chemical and open the spray valve. The thing we did different than we'd done before is we tracked how much liquid we sprayed on the crabgrass and the foxtail, and we billed the customer for it in addition to the grub control we were putting down. Now, that material was fairly cheap to carry in the tank, but we knew we were way outside the box, so we went ahead and billed for it, and we billed at a good margin. It cost us about $3 a 1,000 square feet to carry it with us. We billed $10 a 1,000 for no more effort than opening the gate and taking care of the weeds. The timing on that was good enough that we got control of the crabgrass that was there and the nutsedge. We were a little unnerved when we sent those bills because our customers hadn't seen that before and waited for the complaints, knowing that we might A, have to take care of that ourselves or make an apology. We got 0 complaints. We also didn't get the callbacks that, hey, are you going to come and spray the nutsedge and the crabgrass? So that was customer satisfaction for our part. That was a big A+. We continued to exploit that throughout our grub control. In addition, we started into fungicides with it, both liquid and dry fungicides. Beta swallowed those fungicides, put them in suspension, kept them in suspension, and sprayed them clean. When we talk about the additional revenue streams, we went back and tracked our May, June, and July of 2013 when we put down our grub control on virtually the same properties that we had in 2014. 2013 and 2014 were very similar, May, June, and July in chemical apps, but we had to scratch our heads and wonder where the extra revenues came from. Now, when you talk about what extra revenues are, what I'll tell you is we saw 24% in additional revenues that we had billed for. 24% of $1 is pretty close to a quarter. 24% of May, June, and July is for Exmark Sprayer Spreaders retail. That's real money for no more effort than opening a spray gate. We went on into the fall and put down our fertilizer and broadleaf weed control. We spread and sprayed the whole application. There's nearly 7 million square feet there. We tried something different in September. I put a second operator on beta. I was the only one other than the engineering staff that had been on it, but I put my daughter Kelsey on it. She's a gifted operator. I put her on it, spent 2 minutes with her, riding with her on the back of the platform and showing her the controls and said, "What do you think?" And she says, "I think I've got it." She picked it up in 2 minutes and I turned her loose for 104,000 square feet. She had it. So now that I've had a second applicator on beta, what do? I start thinking ahead for the future. I've got a machine that's easy to run. I have a competent operator that wants to be part of my business. I'm thinking about expansion, not only to take part of the pressure off of me, but for revenues for my business. We went on and put our 5th application, which is our winterizer fertilizer, we start in November with, and due to shortages of material, we ended up with a couple of different materials that have different size pills. That was where we really saw the first true application for the AccuWeigh adjustment. The AccuWeigh adjustment determines where the fertilizer falls out of the hopper and hits the spinner and determines how long it stays on. Exmark brought that to me midsummer and we made a few adjustments, but they placed it right here where you can rest your hand on the pressure control valve and adjust it on the fly, because your adjustments may be 1/4 to 1/2 inch. You can do it on the fly. It's super easy. That was an A+. Over the course of the season, what did we do for maintenance on beta? Well, since I wanted to be right about the cable that I knew they'd messed up on, the first 4-ton beta didn't get a bath. I looked like I was very ungrateful. The machine didn't get washed, it didn't get taken care of, but I knew I was going to choke that cable by not washing it. That's another thing I probably should apologize to the engineering staff for. After 4-ton, I gave beta a bath, and we made sure that it was wet regularly so that if it was going to corrode, we were still going to be right. After the 95,350 pounds from 2014, I'm still wrong. It still works good. The cable was an A+, and it's 1 finger easy. The Subaru engine we found through the cycle of 2014 consumes 0.28 to 0.31 gallons of fuel an hour. It's just shy of 1.5 gallon tank. That gives you over 4 hours of run time per fill in the tank. We kind of set our minds that we wanted fuel in it every 3 hours because I didn't want to be away from the truck. I hate walking after a gas can. We do use no-spill gas cans that have a valve on them. You get them up under the console, you stick the nozzle in the hole, push the button until it's full, and let off. It's really simple. This machine is not designed to be filled with the cheapest 5-gallon gas can that you can find. When you have a machine that will produce this kind of productivity and dollars a day, please go get a $20 gas can and keep it close to the machine. Maintenance, we changed oil at 100 hours. We used Exmark synthetic oil in it. We had no oil consumption. The oil got checked every day or every other day. It kind of got repetitive because we just weren't low. Every 100-hour cycle, the engine oil was changed, saved, given to Exmark, but none was added. There's 6 grease zerks on this machine. There's 4 on the front end that you get to in one spot that help to grease the articulating front end, and there's 1 on each front wheel. That's it. The screens for the tank for the liquid delivery system are down in the front. Here, there's a shut-off valve that's really close to that screen. Mother EPA is always watching, and they'll watch for spills. Exmark designed this so you can shut that tank off close to the screen, screw the small gray cap off, clean your screen, and put it off with a minimum of discarded liquid. That minimum is probably 3 to 4 ounces that you're going to lose. That's not enough to cause anybody an EPA problem. Don't be afraid to take a pan with you to catch that if you have to do that in the street. We went through 1 air filter in 2014 in 329.7 hours and may not have needed to change that. We took that out after our pendimethalin because of the dustiness of it and gave that to the engineering staff so they could send it to Subaru for further review. 2014, we ended up with 2,208 separate billable chemical applications. Is that a lot? I don't know. That depends on the size of your business, the distance between properties, what you're billing, what your margins are. That's just what we did. We did those 2,208 applications in 329.7 hours. Dry fertilizer we put down, 95,350 pounds, and we were at 14,506,000 square feet of weed control. Is that a lot? You'll have to evaluate that in your own program and your own operators and see what your profitability and productivity is to decide if that's a lot. That's just what was done. Over the year, our chemical revenues increased 23%. My wife and daughter and I, in the mowing of 70 to 80 plus properties a week and doing 5 to 7 million square feet, 7 times chemically, didn't have room for 23% growth. Where did that 23% come from? It came from the ability to exploit chemicals for profit that we'd never had before. It made us look at things like dry flowables, wettable powders, fungicides differently. Why? I didn't have to touch them. I didn't have to walk them down. I didn't have to drag a hose. I could mix them at point of use, so it made it easy. When it's easy, you'll do it. Some things that we had to compare with. Our business did 2,057 different mowings last year. In addition to the 2,208 chemical applications. To give you an idea of things to think about for your business, when you're looking at a spreader sprayer or chemical applications, our 2,057 mowings generated 49% as much revenue as our chemical applications. Now, what do we look like when we're mowing? Well, what we have is 2 new 3/4 ton trucks pulling 2 35-foot gooseneck trailers that are hydraulically driven and load hydraulically. So we handle all of our grass at knee high. The reason I tell you that is that equipment costs money. Those trucks are $60,000. Those trailers are $30,000 a piece. That's before you put any equipment on them that'll make you any money. With 1 sprayer spreader and 1 1-ton truck and 1 and sometimes 2 people, if I could get somebody to come and blow sidewalks and stick flags so I didn't have to load every property, we did twice as much revenue. It's very easy to see what direction our business should grow. So, where do we go from here? My wife and I sat down and looked at the business and looked at what we were able to do inside the confines of our green work and said, okay, where do we want to go from here? The first thing we did, we sold our snow removal business and gave ourselves the winter off. Why did we do that? We work 70 to 80 hours a week. It's okay for us to have a little time to reconnect, step back, and grab our breath. And besides, snow's just not fun for us anymore. We took the winter off. This year, we added another Exmark Sprayer Spreader to the fleet. We're also considering additional streams of revenue that we can exploit the sprayer spreader with. For instance, mosquito and insect control. A once-a-month application that will get fleas, chiggers, ticks, mosquitoes. We'll spray your turf, we'll spray your landscape, we'll spray small trees and bushes up to the foundation of your house. That's one other way that we've decided we're going to take this product and exploit it for our own profit. Some opinions. What will this machine add, or what potentially can it add to your business? The number one thing it probably has to add is the lean to steer. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it in the industry. LT Rich with the dual hydros, Turfco with the steering wheel that has to be turned both ways. The number of articulating machines made by Turfex, Permagreen, Ground Logics. There's nothing like it. So, capacity. We used quart jets. Like I said, 4 divisible math is easier than 3. 1 quart per 1,000 divides into a gallon much easier. It wasn't necessarily my idea to take it back to quarts, but that's what we had been used to. All of our Permagreens were set up for a quart per 1,000. Our Turfco was set up for a quart per 1,000. Everything we had used was based on that, so let's stick with that. That added the capacity to get to 2 acres liquid. The layout of the controls at your fingertips, You don't have to look for them. After you've been on it a few minutes, it's very easy to find everything. That'll help your operators keep their eyes on the targets and looking for the weeds, looking for the targets, non-target items. Keep their heads up. They'll do a better job on your applications. It's comfortable to run. It's the best in the industry. The reason that I went from Permagreen to Turfco was to get away from shoulder problems. Articulating machines at 44 years old were tearing me apart. I knew I was bound for shoulder surgery. I had to do something about it. The Turfco was an improvement. Exmark Sprayer Spreader is far beyond that because I can drive the machine with one hand, which leaves my other hand to do all my application process. One thing that we found with the Exmark Sprayer Spreader and it being easy to drive with one hand is we'll do our spot spray applications from the platform. A lot of guys will backpack or carry a jug or drag a hose. Well, let me tell you, if I own a piece of equipment and it's loaded and it's out working, I sure would rather ride it than walk behind it. So oftentimes we'll turn around on the platform, use the lean to steer to back up, and spray in reverse. We've already seen those target weeds along the flower beds, we've seen them in the curb edges, we've seen them in the sidewalk edges, so I've already seen it. I can back up with no wasted motion, go get it, and go on to my application. One thing that we found was in an 8,000 square foot property, it's very easy to spread and spray and be done and ready to go, load up and blow the sidewalks in 3-ish minutes. Now, there are customers that will stand in the window and watch, and they will time how long you're there and figure out how many dollars a minute you're spraying. They will scold you if they think that you've done it too quickly. Here's how we've gotten around that. We make sure on every property, if we can take the opportunity to pull that wand and find something to do with it, whether we spray the curb edges, whether we spray along the flowers, there's always something extra to do. We've turned that perception from, my God, why are they gone so fast, to, you mean he's doing something extra? He acts like he cares? We get no complaints from the short time we're there. Think about that while you're selling a machine that's that productive and can be in and out that quick. Sell that perception that you know what you're doing and you'll take the time to do it right. For your bottom line, happy, comfortable operators are going to do a better job. They'll pull that wand. If they can ride a machine where they would have to walk a machine to put those chemicals down and cover it in a faster time frame, they'll do it. They'll do it happier, which means they'll do you a better job. If your applicators are happier and doing a better job, you're going to have less callbacks and complaints from your customers. That's just good business. Callbacks kill us. The ability to do 2 billable applications at one time. With the Exmark Sprayer Spreader, you can set the width of your spread to match the width of your spray. We do it all the time. Our fertilizer is one price, anything we spray liquid is another. So, if we set our fertilizer pattern to have the right lap to match our spray pattern, then we can bill for the fertilizer and we can bill for the weed control with no extra effort. Some things we did that with, we sprayed fertilizer and broadleaf weed control. We sprayed fertilizer and pre-emergence. We did a test on Barricade, a Barricade dry flowable. We dissolved it in the tank. It was able to dissolve it and spray it cleanly. We then mixed another acre, sprayed half of it. We left the other half set over a weekend. When we started it on Monday morning, we opened the agitation circuit. We ran it 3 minutes. We then sprayed that tank out. It picked that Barricade back up in suspension, kept it in suspension, and sprayed it cleanly with just the use of the agitation circuit. I wouldn't recommend you try that with competitive equipment if you don't like to deal with glue and putty knives. That's what you'll have. We also used fertilizer and nut sedge control. Those are commonly known by chemical names. Pro Sedge, Sedge Hammer, Manage, depending on what part of the country you're in. The machine will dissolve. Pro Sedge, Sedge Hammer, Manage. It'll dissolve it, keep it in suspension, spray it clean, or if you let it settle out because you're not empty at the end of the day, it'll pick it back up, put it back in suspension, and spray it cleanly. If you don't pick it all up and get it out on the leaves. If you lose the littlest amount around your valve settings, you'll lose control on the whole tank. Ask anybody who's done it. We've also done fertilizer with crabgrass control. Again, wettable powders, quinclorac, drive. We're able to pick those up, get them back into suspension if we let them settle out. Fertilizer, quinclorac, and nutsedge control. Quinclorac and ProSedge are compatible. They work with the same surfactants. We carried them in the tank together and we used them to our own profit. We've used fertilizer with fungicides. If we had fungicide apps that needed to go on that, we were able to do that as well. Fertilizer, grub control, nutsedge, and crabgrass control. The sky's pretty much the limit of products that are compatible. Check your labels, make sure you do it inside the label, but everything that we found that's out there that's in a dry flowable or a wettable powder, we can dissolve, keep in suspension, spray cleanly, and put it back in suspension if we need to. Some things that Exmark did outside the box, they put the agitation circuit on. They gave us an extra bit of agitation to run the full pump volume back through the tank. Some engineer somewhere was listening. We were able to exploit that in some fungicide applications, in some rescue treatments. We did some fungicide applications that are known only to golf course people that have mechanical agitation. When you do that, be aware that anything that's white and that's fungicide will dry like chalk. If you let that dry in your tips, you'll probably be fixing it with a toothpick. The thing you can do is you can mix it and spray it clean, but then you probably with fungicides need to get some clear water through to clean your tips. LT Rich, Turf Co., Permagreen are all brand names that we heard today. None of them have an agitation system. They do, however, have recirculation. There's a big difference. If you're dribbling material back into a tank, it can still settle out. There's a huge difference from picking chemical up and pushing it around or dribbling it back in. And as landscapers, a point that you can use for profit on your customer's property. It all comes back to how much money this machine can make you. You've already got the investment in it. Use it for all it's worth. A question that we're always going to get asked when we've been out showing it to people, anybody who looks at it, they want to know how much it costs. The list price is $10,545. When you're selling to people, you want to talk about Exmark fleet discounts. Exmark works on a point system. For instance, a laser mower is worth 4 points. A spreader is worth 4 points. This is what we did in my business. We were due for 2 new lasers. We bought 2 new rear discharge lasers and a spreader. That got us to 12 points. That brings your price down to $8,963. That's a significant savings. Those are things you as salespeople want to approach. We found a lot of people who run multiple spreader sprayers, 3 spreader sprayers, and they're in a fleet discount, and they've half paid for one of them just in their discounts. Don't be afraid to exploit that because landscapers are interested.